The quarterfinals are set for the men and women. Amazing matchups. Check them out at worldsurfleague.com. We'll still get to all those highlights from a big day of competition here at Merewether for the Burton Automotive Newcastle SURFEST, presented by Bonsoy. But right now we're in for a special treat because we have a cast of local legends out there. They're going to put on a show for us and for the fans on the beach. And also very lucky to have Richie Lovett sitting alongside me, and the four-time world champ and the godfather of the Merewether Board Riders Club, Mark Richards. Great to have your company, Emma.
Awesome. Stoked to be here.
Mate, what a couple of days it's been. The surf's been firing. I know you've been enjoying the action as always.
It's been incredible. The surf's been amazing the last couple of days. It was wild and woolly for those early days, and they were incredibly challenging conditions for the competitors. But the surfing has been amazing, especially the free surfing prior to the event. I spent a lot of time there sitting there watching the free surfing, and it was just phenomenal. The level that everyone is surfing at is amazing. It
sure is, and it's a real treat to have Merewether deliver. I think one of the best days of competition yesterday we've seen on the Challenger Series. Would you agree with that?
This is the best the surf has been, I'd say, in the last month or so. Like a couple of weeks ago after we had all that rain, the sandbanks were actually washed away, and the rock section of Merewether was like this really deep gutter. There were no waves there at all. And I was looking at it every day just going, there's no way they'll be able to run the event because it was virtually a total closeout. It was sort of unsurfable. And then roughly, I don't know, a week or 10 days ago, we had that sort of storm, which luckily had like a south element to it. And it dragged out some of that sand and actually, created the bank again. So we've been incredibly lucky, but the surf has been so good the last couple of days.
Been firing, and we've really loved the show. And we're going to enjoy now seeing these guys attack the rock break. Julian Wilson, calling Newcastle home, living a little further south down the coast these days, but what a great addition to the lineup around town. And this guy, Matt Hoy, just an absolute classic. Philippa Anderson also out there in the lineup. And Philippa, she's really the Merewether she-goat, isn't she? She's sort of established herself, obviously, as a SURFEST champion, but honoured recently, added to the Hall of Fame, the first woman to be added to the Hall of Fame for the Merewether Surfboard Club.
Yeah, she was inducted into the Hall of Fame at the 60th anniversary celebrations at Civic Hall in Newcastle last year. First woman to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And Philippa has been the anchor person for the board club for the tag team events. There's been an enormous amount of pressure on her in those situations, but she's always delivered.
She sure has. And this guy has delivered some massive results, Rich. You travelled on the tour with Matt Hoy for a number of years, witnessed those victories that he had on the CT, and got himself all the way to 5th position on the rankings back in '97.
Yeah, Hoyo was an absolute pleasure to travel with. The first time I ever met Hoyo was actually up at Bluey's Beach, and he had a house up there. I think he still has a family home up there, and I just couldn't believe how well he surfed. And then a couple of years down the track, and I'm doing mock heats with him, and we're both riding for O'Neill wetsuits, and I just wanted to hang out with this guy because he had such a good energy about him. He just had this real, happy-go-lucky vibe to him, and the surfing obviously was undeniable as well. But, watching Hoyo get the win at Bells was amazing. Won Figueira de Foz in Portugal, another good victory. And,
and on the back end at Reunion.
Yeah, and at Reunion as well. So really accomplished victories for his time on tour. And, travelling around with another, one of the Novocastrians, Luke Egan. Those guys were a pretty formidable duo there on the tour for a lot of years. And obviously, Hoyo got a lot of wins on the party program as well.
Yeah, well, that was the good thing about travelling with Hoy. He made everyone feel like they were the consummate professional. Because he went so much harder than everyone and still does, and absolutely hammers the rail still, and he tucks in and finds some cover, punching through the curtain, also almost finding his way through.
I'm keen to see whether Hoyo's actually on a single fin. No, it looks like he's got a couple of fins in there at least.
He's actually been riding a twin fin a lot lately.
Awesome.
Oh,
yeah.
You must love to see that.
We're going to talk about twin fins for sure in the next
100%.
half an hour.
We've got so much to celebrate here this afternoon as we see another one of the Merewether Surfboard Club's finest, Mitchell Ross. A couple of QS victories for Rossi back in the day.
Nice.
A four-time Ray Richards Memorial winner. Emma, such a talent, and he rode your boards for a long period of time, and it looks like he might have one under his feet there.
He's been back on them. He's been riding them for the last year or so, so it's been really nice to have Mitch back on the boards again. But Mitch is always surfing good, and he's like so positive and so much fun to actually surf with. And it was interesting, we were talking about Matt before. Like, Matt is shaping surfboards these days, and I think he's got this mantra of where he only shapes on Fridays.
He does.
And if you actually order a board from Matt, you're never quite sure what you're actually going to get. So
No.
Matt sort of says, when you order a board, you get what you're given.
I love that. And you can only pick it up on a Friday afternoon with a case of beer.
With a case of beer.
And that's the way it should be. Julian Wilson, you're seeing a lot of his surfing, Mark, but what an amazing return to competition it was for Julian up at Burleigh. And I know you're up there as well, watching it all unfold. It was a return to head-to-head competition at Burleigh where the Stubbies events unfold, and you had great success. But that's really one of the magic stories of 2025.
It was amazing, Ronnie, to see him do so well. And as he was motoring his way through the field, I actually thought he was going to win the event.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, how amazing would that be for Julian in his comeback year to get a wild card to a CT event and actually win it. And he went so close, and I think his surfing was totally on point, and some of the airs he did were absolutely amazing. And because of his seeding in that event, there was no such thing as an easy heat. Like, he came up against Italo, current world title leader straight away. So, yeah, there was no easy draw for him. He worked his way through that field and surfed insane.
Jack.
And he surfs like he's living in Newcastle for part of the year now, and he's in the water all the time at Merewether, and he's still firing. He's surfing so well, like Jackson Baker here.
Yeah, and just talk to us a little bit about Jackson breaking through. Was the first local to get a SURFEST title on the men's side. Must have been a proud moment for the community.
It was a very proud moment for the community, for the board club, and all the local surfers who were supporting him. And I think there's a misconception that when you're actually surfing at home, it's easy. Everyone thinks that you're in your own house, you're in your own bed, you're driving your own car, you're surfing a wave that you know really well. You've got everyone supporting you. But what I found when I competed in the SURFEST event quite a long time ago, that there's this incredible amount of pressure at surfing at home, because everyone actually expects you to win because you've got those, they think you've got those advantages. So I kind of hated competing at home because of that pressure. You felt like you wanted to win for yourself, but you wanted to win for your town, your friends and your community. Whereas when you're overseas, if you lose an event, it just feels like it's on you. You don't have the hopes and dreams of all your friends and family and the whole town riding on that result. So when Jacko won last year, it was incredible.
Well, mate,
I was so stoked for him.
And lucky for you, you had championship tour wins all over the world. And we'll touch on some of those. Right now, though, we're seeing Julian up. And there's a big crowd on hand, as always. Big week for Newcastle. A victory. The Knights breaking through, beating our beloved Manly Sea Eagles in Golden Point the other night. And it just sort of seemed to ignite that sporting passion that this great city has, MR. And they always turn out in force on SURFEST finals day.
They definitely do. We get tons of people watching it. And that Knights win was amazing because they were in trouble after the first half of that game. And I'm sure you were actually celebrating with Manly a long way ahead, but it was a pretty incredible comeback. And
yeah, the rumours were that the Knights fans were booing their own team off the field at half time, and we were cheering them. We thought it was a great performance in the first half.
Hopefully they weren't booing, because I'm guessing if there were people booing, they were probably cheering for him at the end of the game.
Exactly.
And with all sporting things, it's so easy to be an armchair critic.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, I've made a career out of it.
And we've won every heat from the booth here, by the way.
Oh, mate. But, Emma, let's wind back the clock, because your roots, they go really deep here. Your parents owned the first surf shop in town. It was actually an second-hand automobile shop with a surf shop chucked in as well. But your dad, Ray, he had absolutely identified early just the magic of the sport of surfing, even before you had arrived.
He was one of the first people to start surfing in Newcastle, Ronnie. Originally the shop was a car dealership, and he was driving up into the country and buying used cars that didn't have any rust in them because they hadn't been exposed to any salt. And there was one day, I think this was in the 50s, he saw a guy with a surfboard at Bar Beach surfing, and he thought that looked like fun. You know, I'd like to try that. And at the time, you could only buy boards from Gordon Woods and Barry Bennett in Sydney. So he went down and bought one, started surfing, then he had people asking him, you know, what is it, where do you get them? And then he got the idea to actually buy a couple and put them in the shop with the cars. So it sort of went from being a car dealership to a car and surfboard dealership, and eventually surfboards took over. So we've got some classic old photos of the shop with, I think they were FJ Holdens on the floor and these, you know, longboards around the walls.
Amazing. Yeah, it's just incredible images, but just an awesome place for, you know, a youngster to be introduced to surfing too, because the beaches here, you know, face different directions. There's little nooks that you can tap into. Where did you ride your first waves?
I think at Blacksmith, south of Newcastle. In those days there were no leg ropes, so a lot of the breaks in town were in front of rocks. So no one wanted to surf in front of rocks in case you lost your board and got a ding. But, you know, Blacksmith was sort of the hotspot of surfing in those days, which is just south of Newcastle near Swansea. But we have a ton of surf in this area. You know, I don't want to mention too many breaks.
No, stop right there.
But it's crazy how much surf we have. We've got beach breaks and we've got point breaks, and, you know, we've got waves that work in, it doesn't matter what swell direction it is, or it doesn't matter what wind direction it is. Newcastle's kind of like this little hidden gem for surf spots, and actually variety of surf spots. And you know, I'm going to sound like I'm totally biased here, which I am, but we have, I think, some of the most beautiful beaches that I've you know, seen anywhere. I know we don't have you know, the lagoon type things like Tahiti with the mountains and everything behind it, but we have like really clean water, you know, super clean sand, and such a wide variety of surf. And the visual shots that you guys have been showing on the broadcast, like I've been watching some of the broadcast and thinking, wow, you know, Newcastle just looks so good. Like I know it's good, but you guys have really been showcasing how great it actually is.
It's producing its best stuff for us here at the moment. We've got the Bonsoy Legends Heat unfolding right now. We're going to take a quick break. We've got more with Mark Richards right after this. Welcome back. We have the Bonsoy Legends Heat unfolding. This is Jackson Baker up at the moment, and Richie Lovett and myself just absolutely loving the opportunity to throw a few questions the way of Mark Richards, an Australian Sporting Hall of Famer, Surfing Hall of Famer, and even received the Order of Australia in '94. Oh, the accolades have just kept coming, Emma. Got quite a few. We must have a pretty impressive trophy room back home.
None of them are actually on display.
Where do you keep them?
I think a lot of them are in a box somewhere. There's a lot of trophies in an old washing basket in the garage.
Oh, mate, it's so funny. It's a really similar story for a lot of the surfing champions. A little different to Richie's house. which if you go to the toilet at Rich's, you basically, it's like walking into a gallery with all these surf magazine covers all over the walls. And Rich, you got plenty of them.
Yeah, there's a couple there, and it's really the only place in the whole house where I really put everything on display. So I figured just reminisce while you're having a bit of time there. But no, I do have my Halle Eva trophy in a corner, which I'm very, very proud of. It was just a beautiful trophy. It had its own seat when I flew it home back in the day there, and they had no problem with it back then. But yeah.
Well, Emma, you can speak to that. Big performances on the North Shore. They're ones that you hold dear to your heart because they're very hard to come by and always really hotly contested. And you broke through for one of your first big performances on the North Shore as a teenager in massive conditions. How was that?
Well, in those days, there was no sort of ratings the way there is now to actually get invited to the events. To get into the Hawaiian events, you basically had to go there for a season and paddle out on the craziest days of all time to get voted into the events. And a lot of the Hawaiian surfers actually voted on who went into the events. So you kind of had to impress them to get into events. And if you got the chance to get into one, you didn't want to blow the chance by, like not taking off on a wave that you should have taken off on. But Hawaii had just a huge influence on my whole career, and I'm incredibly thankful to so many surfers there and so many of the Hawaiian shapers who were just incredibly supportive, and they really did a lot for me, kind of. It sort of made me the surfer I was, and also in terms of shaping, it kind of made me the shaper that I was too.
Love that.
For a long time, it felt like it was a second home. Like we would go the beginning of October and stay right through February. And for me, it was the highlight of the year, spending sort of 3 to 4 months there surfing the absolute best waves in the world with not a care in the world either.
Because I think at that point, you'd already started shaping and then you went to surfing. I remember an interview that we did, you explained to me one time that, you shaped and then you went and had this pro career and then you went back to shaping. But you had so many mentors in Hawaii too, where you really, perfected the craft. And the classic story that you told me one time as well about putting the template up on your bedroom wall for the famous twin fin design. That's a pretty special one.
I could talk for an hour here, Richie. I'll try and
give us the short version.
I'll try and give you the short version. I was inspired to be a shaper because in the early days when we'd go to Sydney to get surfboards, the guys who worked in surfboard factories, it seemed like whenever there was waves, they would drop tools and go surfing. So it seemed like a very enviable career. I was always creative at school with anything to do with your hands. Like I was good at woodwork, but not good at a lot of other things. So I kind of wanted to shape, and I used to spend a lot of time with Jeff McCoy during school holidays. So Jeff showed me some sort of basics. My mum and dad bought me an electric planer, and it all basically stemmed from there, this desire to actually have a career actually shaping surfboards. And weirdly, the competitive career kind of got in the way of that for a little while. It was I was sort of trying to balance both of them.
Amazing. Incredible. And what an awesome gift from your parents at 13 years of age to receive a planer. My mum gave me a lawnmower when I was 13, and it's not a career path that I followed, Emma, but amazing.
I bugged them because I was getting old blanks and I was trying to shape them with a surf form in the laneway on a pair of stands, and the blanks were super hard in those days, and I couldn't get any foam off with a surf form, so I bugged them for an electric planer, and my dad actually bought it. My mum was just aghast. She didn't want to know about it because she figured the first thing I'd do was like slice a few fingers off with it.
Here goes Philippa. Section lining up on the inside, and hasn't this end section here at Rocks over the years provided some great exciting finishes. It always requires a lot of commitment. It's sort of like a smaller version of what we see in Margaret River, where it's going to be a challenge. It's a bit of a lottery. There might be some rock exposed there on the inside, and the big numbers really come when surfers attack it. But Rich, you touched on it, Emma. Through your pro career, it was sort of, you're also thinking of what was a great kind of financial backup, and you saw potential in shaping, and even in world title years, you sort of skipped events to come home and shape boards, which was pretty interesting.
Well, it was kind of, I figured that was the chosen career path. In those days, it was very hard to make a living on the tour. There wasn't a lot of prize money. There was no sponsorship in those days. If you got free board shorts or free wetsuits or something, you actually thought you were sponsored. Like, first pair of board shorts I got off Quicksilver, I think in 1975, Alan Green and John Law didn't charge me for them. I got a free pair of board shorts and I was like, wow, I'm sponsored by Quicksilver.
Yeah. Give me the stickers, I'm ready to put them on.
But just interestingly, Ronnie, on the rocks section here, it looks like an easy wave to surf, but it's actually really challenging the way it breaks. Like, it's affected by the sand, and it's also affected, the reef underneath is constant, but depending on where the sand is on it, the takeoff spot can actually vary, and the way the wave actually breaks varies. And the takeoff spot is like an X marks the takeoff spot. You can be a little too far north and you can't catch the wave, and there's a dead bit that's a little bit further to the south, which is deeper, and sometimes you think you've got to be on the inside to be there, but in that dead bit you'll get stuck and you won't catch waves either. And the second section, which is further out, which is the ladies, which I was surfing earlier on, there's a few different takeoff spots there, and there's like deep sections and shallow sections on that bank. So it's a very challenging, it looks kind of easy, but when it's breaking, especially from the outside through, it's a really challenging wave to position yourself, and especially in a heat situation when you've got 3 other surfers with priority and everything paddling around you.
Emma, we know that you've had some back issues of late, but still shaping boards and still doing your own sprays a lot of the time. I love seeing that stuff.
I just spray my own boards in our driveway at home. I call them my dodgy sprays. I'm always on the verge of a disaster. And I've got really good neighbours. They don't seem to mind.
Bit of overspray, drifting across the fence.
There was one time recently where they were actually having a barbecue on their front deck, and I was spraying a solid pink board, and there was just pink spray going everywhere in the air. And they yelled, "We've got half an hour. Can you wrap it up in half an hour before we have the guests for the barbecue?"
I love that. And I also love that you always have your music blaring while you're shaping away or working on those sprays. Quite often Pearl Jam. You've become pretty good friends with Eddie Vedder over the years, and I know that Newcastle has had some incredible musical acts pass through town, but, reading that Pearl Jam reached out to you and asked you to put the set list together for their concert here, that's a huge honour.
When they asked me to do it, I was like incredibly stoked to do it. And then I actually started to shit myself because I was thinking, how do you do this? Because it was a challenge to do it, and I don't know how Ed does it for every show, because every live show they do, the set list actually varies. They never do the same set list. So the challenge was, like, the deep hardcore fans, they don't want to really hear the hit songs. They want to hear obscure songs. And the fans that have only bought the latest albums only want to hear songs from the latest albums. They don't want to hear obscure songs. So it took me ages. I started like writing lists and crossing off songs and adding songs, and I think I got it pretty right, but it took me a long time. But the concert when they played in Newcastle was amazing, and I saw them in Sydney just recently, the 2 shows they did in Sydney, and also the show on the Gold Coast. So I'm sort of the biggest Pearl Jam fan on the planet. And
have you shaped a couple of boards for Eddie?
I've made him a couple. He hasn't ridden them. I think he's just got them on display in his house. But while I'm shaping, they release all their albums through their website. So every show they do, there's a live album. And when I'm shaping, I just listen to live Pearl Jam albums. And at home, I drive my kids mad. They just go, "How can you listen to that one song 1,000 times?" And I'm going, there's different versions of it from the live shows.
Sick.
Rich, how many of your mates' houses have you been in where they have their Mark Richards board on display and they haven't ridden it because it's just so iconic? It's
they are.
A thing of beauty.
They're things of beauty. They're pieces of art. Every surfboard is, but Emma, your boards seem to be particularly sought after, and we used to have them as a prize at work as well through Surf Hardware. The guys who used to win the tipping competition would always order a Mark Richards board as a prize there. So yeah, they're incredible boards here as we see Hoyo. I'm going to say Hoyo's probably winning this heat at the moment.
Yeah, finding a bit of cover. Rossi had a pretty nice wave as well, and so did Philippa. Jackson buckled his board. Hoy brings this one through to the inside. What about you, Emma? Do you like to see the boards on display? Are you happy to see them on display, or would you prefer them waxed up and ridden?
I think the jury's out on that one, Ronnie. I get asked that question all the time, and my theory on it is if you own a vintage board or if you bought a retro replica, it's yours to do whatever you like. If you want to surf it, great. If you want to put it up on the wall, great. If you want to take it out in the backyard and slice it up with a chainsaw, great. Just whatever you want to do.
No one is doing that. No one is doing that. But, you know, I think the reason those boards are so iconic, you know, obviously the logo that you had the Hawaiian artist put together for you, Albert Dove, and just that MR logo is just so iconic. I love it. And could you have imagined that would have just become such a iconic stamp for you over the years?
No. Originally, when Al did the logo for me, I didn't register. I didn't consider it as a surfboard logo. It was only when I got home and all my friends sort of went, "You should make that your surfboard logo." But I've been very fortunate with the retro twins that there were iconic colours on them, and you know we still sell quite a lot today, and they're popular today. And back then we didn't. Because we were making boards ourselves, I was like shaping, spraying and glassing my own boards. We didn't have quivers of boards. Like my quiver for the year was generally 2 twin fins, a 6.2 and a 6.4, 6.2 for small surf, 6.4 for big surf. And then when I got to Hawaii, I generally jumped back on single fins. So it was a very different time. We didn't pre-events get 5 to 10 boards from our shaper for every event.
Rich, when you were a Grom, and starting to fall in love with surfing and seeing footage of Mark, what were some of was the highlight vision that sort of sticks out in your mind, or images that made an imprint on you?
I remember watching, I think it was the 82 Surfabout, and I remember the event moved, I think, down to Bendalong, and I remember seeing vision of Mark on the screen. I was just going, oh my goodness, what is going on here? And there was this kind of stylish surfer just screaming across this wave that I'd never seen that sort of style, and were well and truly on the 20s at that point, and just the style of surfing to me just had a big influence. And Mark, as we see Poyo there just checking out what Rossi's riding, you must be pretty stoked with this whole resurgence over the last 5 to 10 years of this whole twin movement. It's back, and it's not a fad. It's here to stay. And
no, it's here.
What do you think it is that draws people to that style of equipment, or that setup?
Basically, Richie, they go really good. And as you know, you're riding twin fins and you're shaping twin fins. It's always been a very legitimate design. Like they went great in the 70s, and they went great in the 80s. Simon sort of killed them for a while when he came out with a thruster. It was nearly, twin fins were nearly back in the Smithsonian or something, or stuck in the museum. But I think the last few years has been one of the greatest times ever in terms of surfboard design, because like anything goes now. For a long time, everyone was riding, you know, narrow high-performance thrusters, and in the hands of the best surfers in the world, those boards go insane. But in the hands of a recreational surfer, you know, it's maybe not the best board to be having fun on.
Agree.
So now you walk into a surf shop anywhere in the world, or you go to the beach and you see a whole selection of, there's twin fins, there's quads, there's mals, there's eggs, you know, there's high-performance thrusters, there's people on stand-ups, there's every sort of surf craft. But the beauty of seeing everyone on twin fins is, you know, I absolutely love them. For me, riding a twin, like I ride thrusters, but when I get on a twin fin, it feels like putting on a really comfortable pair of shoes. It feels like me. And that freedom of not having that back fin, it just feels like everything is, you know, like looser and faster and freer. And they go really good. I think that, you know, people are rediscovering how good they actually go.
Yeah, well, Josh Kerr's on board.
Yeah, he's tearing. I was stoked watching him ride a 20. And weirdly, I've been getting DMs from people just going, how cool, you know?
Yeah, totally committed to it. Mark, always a pleasure. And we know you're going to be about for finals day tomorrow. We're going to have big crowds down here. And I've got to ask you, because I know you watch it all so closely, who do you see breaking through for the victory tomorrow on the men's side?
Ryan.
Yeah.
Oh, it would be incredible to see Ryan win the event. I think the whole town would go crazy. The board club would go crazy. And he was one surfer that you should not have got knocked off the tour. And it would be wonderful to actually see him win it. So we're all cheering for him. But.
And on the women's side, we've got an unbelievable lineup. Sally Fitzgibbon's chasing a 4th SURFEST title to become the most winning surfer on the women's side. Do you reckon she can get it done after the disappointment of the bump off the CT?
She looked like she'd washed it off today. She was surfing really well in that heat today, so I think she's a big chance. But as you guys know, you've just got to get waves. Like pro surfing is, people make it complicated, but it's the simplest thing of all time. You've got 30 minutes in the water and you've just got to be on the best waves. And if you're not on the best waves, it doesn't matter how good you surf, you can't win. It's a really simple program. Just get 2 waves and you win.
Yeah, that
2 good waves.
Really smart advice here from Mark Richards, mate. Absolute pleasure. Rich, I'll see you tomorrow. We've still got the Stone and Wood post show coming your way this afternoon. Don't go anywhere. Jesse Starling, AJ McCord, and also Stace Galbraith are going to be breaking down everything that's unfolded on another huge day of competition here at Merewether.